Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This week I wanted to share my preferred drawing program and how I use it specifically for my artwork. It's a deep look into how I render, create concepts, pick my colors, etc. So you'd be getting a deep look into majority of my process. Now the program I use is Photoshop CC. I tend to use whatever version is out at the time and I don't update it until Adobe forces me. So in regards to what program I use, that's what I use. So before any illustration is started, I have to get the prep work ready. For the first step of prepping my artwork, I have to have inspiration or an idea for the artwork itself. Basically, what am I going to be creating? The illustration I'm making for this video is actually one that I'm making for my portfolio, so you'll be getting a look into one of my best pieces. After the idea, I have to get started on the thumbnail sketches. For me, they're usually important because it gives you a way to mess around with the concept of the piece without having to go into immense details of the sketch. Basically, it helps you mess around with the flow of the piece. I usually make a good few before I settle on one that I like, and even then sometimes I change my mind. After getting the concept of the piece down, the next step is to start cleaning up the sketch. Some artists like to go ahead and start painting after doing the rough sketch of the thumbnail. I don't. I prefer to have a cleaned up sketch so I can just focus on the rendering alone, so that way I'm not making too much work for myself. After setting up the sketch and I like how it looks, I add the base colors, so the basic colors of the actual piece itself. Then I move on to adding the values, the effects. The way I use effects is quite similar to almost every piece that I make. For shading, I like to pick the dark color of my color palette and then use a multiply filter to make it look like a shadow, and I tweak the intensity with the opacity bar. For highlights, it's quite similar, except instead of the darkest color, I go with the lightest color of the color palette and I use the overlay filter and again tweak it with the opacity bar. Whenever I want to unify the piece together with a single color, I place the color down and then I use the darker color filter and it'll adjust it to kind of give it this unified look. If I'm still not satisfied with it and I've mapped out all the colors I want, sometimes I differ on intensity, I differ on values, and I differ on if I really want it to be that color scheme in the end. So then I go to the camera raw filter, I use the color balance tool, and I use the hue and saturation tool and the curves tool to get the right scheme that I remembered or I envisioned this piece being. And I like to make sure that my values are correct, so my dark areas are dark and my light areas are light. So a way for me to help keep my values correct is I click Control 4 and it'll show me the colors but in grayscale. So I can make sure that my lights are light and my darks are dark. This really helps the overall value of the piece. To switch back to color mode, I just click Control 2 and I interchange between the two throughout the process to make sure that I'm staying on track. For mapping out the colors and using effects, you could always continue to tweak it. After your base colors are set in stone and ready, the next step is the rendering. Rendering, I don't have a lot of guidelines. I just have a few small tips that I usually follow that helps me stay on track. So I'm just gonna give them out to you. Just popping in here to let you guys know that I am on Instagram. So if you guys want to see more artwork from me that's not here on YouTube, then go ahead and follow me there. And if you like my art and my videos, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Anyways, back to the video. Tip number 1 is between every step, save your layers. This step plays into not getting lost in the rendering. Sometimes I render so much that I lose the original idea of the piece, so in between every step I save a copy of the layer in a group. So if I change my mind on how I'm liking this color scheme, I can always go back and adjust it. It also helps me with layer management. So I went from a lot of layers to only about 4. And if I don't like the effects that I did, I have a layer that I can go back to. And while I'm rendering, I have a layer to reference to make sure that the illustration is staying on track with the base color layer. Tip number 2 is, if you can help it, don't start with the face. Now, if you're an artist who loves drawing faces, this really applies to you. I say this because for me, my favorite part of drawing is someone's face. And if I save the best for last, then I'm more motivated to finish the piece in its entirety with great quality than I do if I finish the face first. I do this when I can help it, of course. Sometimes it's the other way around, where drawing the face first and making it look nice makes me want to finish the piece. Final tip. Arguably the most important is that always remember, when it comes to rendering, less is always more. I personally tend to get carried away when rendering, so I remind myself that less is more. Let me explain. Know when to stop rendering. I used to over render in the sense that I'd zoom up to the eye of a character and have it look beautiful, but it wasn't even noticeable from the entire perspective of the illustration. So I did all that work for nothing. What was the point? Knowing when to stop rendering is very crucial. Sometimes, like I've said before, I get lost in rendering, so I always make sure that when I am rendering a piece close up, meaning like zoomed into the piece to get the details that I want, I make sure that I'm not zoomed up more than 100% of the illustration. I apologize if my process isn't as organized when it comes to prepping the illustration than it comes to rendering. Rendering is something that I shut off my brain to do naturally. A lot of artists are like that, where they focus on the concept and all the hard thinking work in the beginning of the processes of the piece, and then once they get the piece and the concept that they like, they then shut their brain off and start rendering. Basically, in that step, you're supposed to be cleaning up the artwork that you've already decided it's going to look like. It's where a lot of artists, such as myself, where we kind of go into autopilot. So the best I could do was give you tips on stuff that I usually check myself on and do while I am mind-numbingly rendering. Now that we've did the concept, did the sketches, did the base colors, and finally finished rendering, the artwork is complete. I hope in this video you understood that my process as an illustrator is quite different than most people's. I hope that you take what you like from this video and apply it to your own process. In regards to skilling on actually drawing and actually learning how to render, that's a whole nother video in of itself. If you're interested in that, I'd be more than happy to make one. Now that's all I have for you in this video. I hope to see y'all in the next one. Bye for now.